Hey everybody, welcome into another episode of Flag for Discussion. My name is Farbod and Jace, here as always with Jace Hatfield. This episode is going to be a little bit different though.
Farbod and I have bachelor parties, weddings, soon to be honeymoons. It's that time of the year for us.
It's the season of life. It's not even just the time of the year.
Hopefully our one and only weddings and our one and only honeymoons. But this episode will be a best of edition of Flag for Discussion. So we're going to have some of our best clips from the season, playoff talk, our best moments, and more.
Yeah, so basically, as what Jay said, whatever we cut for this week's episode is going to be in the title. Hopefully, you'll sit back, relax, enjoy. Make sure you check us out on all of our socials, Flag for Discussion, on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. We're on Twitter at F4Discussion, and TikTok at Flag4Discussion. We will be back soon to react live to everything college football. This is just, like we said, that season of life for us. So thanks so much for tuning in. Anyways, Curt Cignetti, he signed a new deal with Indiana. It's going to put him up near the top with Ryan Day and Kirby Smart and Lane Kiffin in terms of highest earning head coaches in college football. He's going to be making $13.2 million a year. And mind you, he signed an extension back in October. Do you remember when the Penn State job opened? He signed an extension with Indiana because everyone was like, oh, maybe he'll take the Penn State job. So in that extension, there was a deal there was like a part of the contract that said like there's going to be good faith market review after the season if they make the semifinal, and they have 120 days afterwards to meet, come up with a new contract and sign it, both parties to sign it. And they came up with $13.2 million. For me, my argument isn't necessarily he didn't deserve that, but I don't know if you remember, not this season, last season in like August, Oklahoma just gave Brent Venables a 3-year extension. Who was going out to hire him? Like, Curt Cignetti just won the national title. I get it. But he's also kind of made it clear he's not leaving Indiana. So I know you have your own points on this in general. The good faith market review kind of blows up my argument, but it just makes me think of like, why do programs keep fighting against themselves? Or these contracts aren't real? Like there's so many coaches keep signing deals that just next year they'll sign a new 4-year deal. What's the point?
Yeah. The renegotiations like halfway through a deal, and then even like months later, like you said with Cignetti, they're renegotiating again. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me. The parallel that this immediately takes me to is if you're ever watching like a game show, like Survivor, for instance. Lydia, my fiance, and I watched that.
You doxed yourself.
There we go. We've been doxed now, both of us. My fiance and I will watch Survivor, and sometimes like someone will be. The parallel here is like the AD and the coach. Someone in the show, the AD, will like feel like they have a really strong alliance with coach, with some other player. And because of that, they will like almost too much like check in and like, hey, we're good, right? Like, oh, you're still on my team, right? You're not voting for me, right? Like they check in a little too much. They're a little too hands-on. And then the other person starts thinking, why do they want me so much? Like, why are they so locked in? Like it's a little more locked in with me than I would have expected out of normal reason. And then they start wondering like, oh, maybe there's got to be something else going on. And then it always ends up in them in the show. Like they just kind of get one of them backstabs the other because then all of a sudden the relationship gets weird. I wonder if that's like teams are really nervous. Like, oh man, I don't want Cignetti to turn around tomorrow and say, oh, I'm going to join, who knows who's going to pony up a bunch of money and where he's going to lead. There's a lot of good programs. So they're getting nervous. So they're pumping money into him and renegotiating this deal. But on the flip side, at what point does Cignetti go, man, Indiana's really trying to keep me? Do they really think there's no faith if I leave? Do they, like what's going on here? I doubt that would happen. But it does make me think of that. Like it feels like you have party A who's overly involved in this relationship. Well, party B might start getting weirded out by it. We'll see how that plays for Cignetti. But it is interesting how they negotiate like every 4 months versus your contract's up, let's renegotiate now.
It's like that guy or girl who, and I'm not trying to sound ignorant, who like was in a bad relationship and then they finally get into a good one, but like their own insecurities make them keep questioning things. So they're always checking in with that guy or girl, and their significant other's like, dude, we're good. Stop bothering me.
That's
Like,
exactly
I don't
how
know
it
what
feels.
you've had before, but it's like Indiana has been so bad for so long that they're all over Curt. But like that's the in general for this conversation is like maybe Curt Cignetti was a bad example because he just won the national title, and in his extension that he signed to keep him from leaving for Penn State, essentially, was that was done validly. Like that was another program was coming for your coach. You got to give him a deal to show him how much you want him and why he shouldn't look at another program. But for in like situations like Brent Venables 2 years ago, he signs a 3 or 4 year deal with that was coming off of one good year, one bad year at Oklahoma. He had another bad year after that with Jackson Arnold, and then this year, obviously, they made the playoffs. So, like Oklahoma fans are starting to look high on him again. But at that moment in time, program like no one was going out and saying we need Brent Venables. We need to buy out Brent
Mm-hmm.
Venables from his contract. It's August of our year. We need to go get him. So at that point, I got to give college football agents all the credit in the world because I'm assuming his agent went to Oklahoma and was like, guys, it's July. He's got a couple years left on his deal. We got to sign an extension. You know what they would have done like 10, 15 years ago? And I'm not the old guy on a lawn with like screaming, but it's like, well, they would have done 15, 20 years ago as an AD. They would have been like, buddy, you're like 500 here. You had one really good year,
Yeah.
one really bad year. Why are we going to give you an extension? But it was more like Oklahoma decided to bid against himself. Now it could work out for them, but I just don't understand it.
Yeah, because the flip side of it is now you waste a couple extra million a year on a head coach that's solid but not great. When that extra 4 or 5 million a year could have gone to better coordinators, retaining your good coordinators, NIL money now, facilities. It's interesting because kind of like exactly you were saying, Curt Cignetti wasn't our best example, but to a good example would be Lane Kiffin at Ole Miss. Like in 2023, Ole Miss doubled down and gave him another big extension. I think he was originally going to end in 2025. They doubled down in 2023 for another one. And then in October of this year, like they had incentives where if they hit X amount of wins, he triggers longer and bigger contracts. And they had hit the trigger for him to get another year all the way to 2031 with Ole Miss with all this money. But no matter how much they renegotiated with themselves and with Lane Kiffin, it didn't matter because he ended up leaving. So it is like, does it work with Brent Venables? Does it not work with Lane Kiffin? Curt Cignetti, I think the guy himself, Curt Cignetti, is just loyal enough that he'll be there regardless.
Yeah.
But there seems to be no consistent rhyme or reason of like why schools negotiate the way that they do. It must be like agents finagling money, lying about opportunities, maybe, because you make a good point about Brent Venables, who's calling him in August before a season starts after a 6-6 year. Probably nobody.
I mean, nobody, or at least nobody that he would leave to, right? Like,
Yeah.
it's not like, I mean, Oklahoma was where he wanted to go, but it's not like USC all of a sudden was opening up or Michigan was opening up, where it would be like, that's a place that could threaten us. One, they didn't know. I don't know who would have wanted him at that point. Now someone might because they love his defensive mind and shows that okay, he can bounce back after a bad early start as a head coach. But I mean, maybe that's getting too far down this rabbit hole. I just, whenever I see these deals, I think Mario Cristobal is a really good example. For like starting in his second year at Oregon, he was asked every December, hey, Miami looks like they might be firing their coach. Or, hey, this place might be looking for a coach. How loyal are you to Oregon? He always said the right things, and he was loyal to Oregon. But he was signing new contracts every year. Like I remember at that point where I was just learning how stupid college football contracts were. I was like, the first time he signed it, I was like, okay, good. They have him for 4 years. And then 8 months later, he was negotiating a new contract. It just doesn't make sense to me. Like, what's the point of contract?
Yeah, and this deal, like they're not going to go. Okay, Cignetti's with Indiana until 2033. You know that they're not going to not negotiate until 2033. I bet this contract is changed 4 to 6 times before 2030 alone. So
the second,
probably every season.
The second a coach starts making $14 million, his agent's going to be in the Indiana AD's office saying, hey, buddy, we got to up this.
Mm-hmm.
Like, as long as they keep winning.
I wish our companies would do this. I wish like our jobs were so competitive. Companies were doing this to us. Just come into it. Hey, we'll give you an extra 100,000. Just stay. Just stay. Okay. Brad Crawford had a great list that came out like when you're listening this past week. Top 10 wide receiver rooms for 2026, as Farbod mentioned. It was fun to look at for a few reasons. One, obviously, in today's college football, passing heavy, having really good wide receivers, we saw with Indiana, is key to winning a national championship. Based on where NIL money is going, it seems like teams have recognized wide receivers are, in college football, one of the best ways to get an edge over a team, because college corners are probably the weakest overall position group in college football. And on the flip side, college receivers can be some of the most dominant. So it's how you can create some of the best mismatches. And we talked about it all season with Indiana. How many times did they get themselves into third and long? And every single time they had three playmakers that seemed like they made every big play for them. That's because they had such good receivers and they were able to take advantage. Plus, there was a lot of big names that entered the portal this season. Cam Coleman, Nick Marsh, plus many others I'll talk about here. So it's kind of fun to see where they all landed. And I think in the heat of everything going on in college football, it's kind of nice to sit down for a second and actually stop talking about the hypotheticals and the schedule and the season and talk about some football. So I'll start us off here. So this is Brad Crawford's list, not Farbod and I's top 10. At number 1, he had Texas. They have Cam Coleman going to next year, transfer from Auburn. They bring back Ryan Wingo. He was kind of their go-to guy last year, young wide receiver, still developing, but he was a high recruit. And then they bring in Stanford transfer Emmett Mosley the 5th. Now, this was his number 1 room. I have a note on here that says, I love the top 2. I think Cam Coleman, Ryan Wingo is an insane downfield threat combination. Emmett Mosley's a big wide receiver. We know Stanford always produces those. I really like the top 2, and I think Emmett Mosley's a very complimentary 3rd. But after this, there's just not much production, nothing that gives you much like solace in that they go more than 3 deep. And when you get into some of these other rooms, I don't know if this is my number 1. But like I said, just the duo of Cam Coleman, Ryan Wingo, they stay healthy all season. There's only a few teams that have enough secondary to help that out and stop it. But at the same time, as we all know, injuries happen. If one of those guys goes down, I think it changes this team dramatically. The question for this team, which I'll ask you here, Farbod, is this enough of an upgrade from last season to make you feel confident with Arch's development that this is not only just a playoff team, but a national championship contending team?
I think it's no doubt. I think if you put Cam Coleman on Ohio State, and this is no disrespect to Jeremiah Smith, people would be talking about Cam Coleman the way they talk about Jeremiah Smith. And I don't think, I'm not saying either one of them is better than the other. I think the obvious fact of the matter right now is Jeremiah Smith's had the better career, obviously the more wins, everything. And Cam Coleman's been stuck with 15 quarterbacks at Auburn. But you put Cam Coleman, Ryan Wingo together. One of the reasons we don't love rankings in general is because they're just all over the place, right? But I like this list because it at least just reminds me who these teams have. And if you're telling me you have a 4th-year Arch Manning, yes, it's his 2nd year starting, his 4th year. So he's combining, and this might sound cliche and all the stuff that everyone's always said, but he's combining a childhood and lifetime of learning from his uncles and dad and grandpa, all about coverages, being a quarterback every day of his life, basically. He's been immersed in that. But now he's entering year 4 of the Texas system, year 2 of starting. Man, as long as Sark comes out with a good plan and they're able to block for them for those receivers to get the ball, I think this has a chance to be pretty formidable. And I would almost make Texas, not because of Arch. I just feel like Texas is a playoff team, almost a lock.
Yeah, I think I'm there with you. They should take that step up, and you hope. We said this a lot about them last year. They really struggled to run the football last season. And part of that, there's a lot of reasons why that happens. It's a big equation. One of those higher level variables has to be when you don't have a super threatening passing game, it allows teams to stack the box, allows safeties to creep down. Another year of Ryan Wingo, assuming he develops, assuming Arch develops, bring in Cam Coleman to the equation. That has to move safeties back, right? That has to make linebackers a little more hesitant.
those are the type of things that you hope for Texas. If you're a Texas fan, open up the run game. Those are the things that if you're a Texas fan, that's what you would like to see. We can't live in a world where we just play like Madden, where we just play 4 verticals and chuck it deep to one of those 2 every time. Now, they are going to play teams that don't have the secondary, and in which case you absolutely can. You're going to score 80. However, when Texas plays those good SEC teams, and SEC teams always have really good DBs. If you play a team that has like a pro caliber safeties and a good corner or two, you're going to have to run the ball. And I think that'll be the big question mark for Texas. I think there's no doubt that Arch is going to be able to sling for 380 and 4 touchdowns against most defenses, but it's going to be those big games. Does Texas have that in them? And that'll be a big question that hopefully we can answer between now and the start of the season. We got a lot of time to figure that one out. You kind of alluded to this team, but I'll jump down to number 2, Ohio State as the second best wide receiver room, according to Brad Crawford. They come back with Jeremiah Smith, year 3. I know it feels like he should be in the NFL already, but they bring back Jeremiah Smith, and then true freshman 5-star Chris Henry Jr., and then former 5-star Brandon Inniss, and then 2 transfers, Kyle Parker from LSU and Devin McCouen from UTSA. I like this room a lot. I think this is if I were to make my list of top 10 rooms, I like to see 5 deep minimum. Just wide receivers, it's a fickle position. You never know when guys are going to get hurt. If teams have 2 really good corners and a good safety, you might need a 4th receiver to step up and be the guy that makes a difference. You never know who's going to need to step up in which moment. And like I said, with injuries, that really matters. This is a really deep room. This is 5 guys that we have Jeremiah, other than Chris Henry, this is 4 guys that have played a lot of college football, guys who have played in big moments, guys who have played on good teams, guys with production. Chris Henry will be the one guy that will be new to this, but he's 6'4", 6'5", freshman receiver. I think he'll be just fine at Ohio State. It will be interesting. I think Jeremiah Smith does obviously carry this room. That's not disrespect to anyone else. He would carry any wide receiver room. But I do wonder, Chris Henry Jr. is a true freshman. What are we going to get out of him? Brandon Inniss, it was a former 5-star, but he hasn't played a lot in his handful of years at Ohio State. Is there a reason why? Why have guys that are younger than him stepped over him so quickly? And then whenever you get 2 transfers, obviously you hope the fit works, but you still have to bank on a fit. So my one fear with Ohio State would be you really return 1 true Buckeye, and then outside of that, you are banking on transfers panning out or players without a lot of experience making that next step. But if there's anyone that can do it, it's the Ohio State wide receiver.
I mean, they did lose their wide receiver coach to USF.
But Brian Hartline is now at USF.
I feel like they're have enough talent to overcome that. Or is it collectively as good a wide receiver room as Texas? As I probably I'm surprised they're number 2. But I think it's because Jeremiah Smith, if you were just creating a weighted average of all the rooms, Ohio State's number 2 because Jeremiah Smith is past the top level you could score him at, right? Texas, everyone's probably at an 85 or an 80. Ohio State, you could tell me everyone's at an 80 or 75, but Jeremiah Smith's at 102, and it just brings them up. So there's a reason they're up there, and I can't really say I have much of a problem with that. I'm surprised at number 3, and I'm gonna jump into that real quick. Number 3 on this list was Clemson, and they have Brian Westcott Jr., who's awesome. They have T.J. Moore, Nate Burrows, who's going to be pretty solid there. They have a new OC who, with Lincoln Riley's brother Garrett Riley, the last couple of years, they've been up and down. They look like everything clicked 2 years ago. One of the reasons you and I picked them to win the national title this past year was because, all right, Kate Klubnik, Garrett Riley, everything seems like it's coming together. Let's see how they are, but we think they're going to be really good. And then everything fell apart. I'm curious about this because they have a new OC. They have a new quarterback. They have some returning players, but we mentioned it a bunch this year. This past year, they were so senior laden, they're returning so much. I don't know how much of a difference this room will make, and I don't know if I agree with them being at 3.
You bring up a bunch of great points because on paper, if you look at just NFL draft type, Bryant Westcott Jr. and T.J. Moore are 2 guys that NFL scouts think can be first-round picks if they pan out this next year. And then, Naeem Burrows and Tyler Brown were 2 high recruits that showed a lot of flash. And they had this exact room. And this is all homegrown, by the way. This is the one completely homegrown wide receiver room on this list. Only a couple teams have one. We'll talk about here shortly. They had this exact room last season, plus Antonio Williams, who's going to be a high draft pick this year. Plus, as you said, Cade Klubnik, who was a former 5-star and was supposed to be a high pick, and it did not work out whatsoever. So it is interesting. I think this room has a high ceiling. Chris Vizinya's been in the program a little bit. He's going to be the quarterback next season. These wide receivers have been in the program. They certainly should have chemistry. They should know the offense. They should know the program. I think that because of that, they have a really high ceiling. But we saw a terrible floor last season, and they lost their best receiver from this room. So what does that, I'm with you. I think there's so much variability here for a team that just wasn't great last season to put them at number 3, especially I think number 4 and number 5 and number 6 and number 7 all produce scarier rooms, in my opinion. I'll go through them a little quickly here because I know I'm taking a while. Number 4 is the Oregon Ducks with DeCorian Moore, Evan Stewart, Jeremiah McClellan, and then transfer Iverson Hooks from UAB, and then true freshman 5-star Jalen Lott, and then he'll be a true freshman, former 5-star Gatlin Blair, but I think he's 20 years old now. He was on a mission for the last 2 seasons, so he'll be back with Oregon football, or not back, but officially with Oregon football this season. This is probably the deepest room in the country. This is my quick note here. They have 6+ players that were all high recruits or high in transfer portal. All these guys have speed, ability to go up and get a football. I don't think they don't have that Jeremiah Smith, Cam Coleman type top receiver, but they do give you 6 pretty dang good wide receivers with even more depth that I didn't mention here. So this is probably my deepest room. I think 4 is a good note for them. They don't have that elite wide receiver one quite yet that we've seen, but they do have pretty insane depth. I'll pause with the Ducks and give you a chance. I know you might want to share a word or two.
How many of those guys by week 4 can you not tell me they are elite? They just need to take the next step. Like Evan Stewart, he was that last year if he didn't have a torn meniscus all year. DeCorian Moore, like he was true freshman 5-star, made a ton of plays last season. But how? Like I think just as likely as you were saying, like I know you're not saying they're not good. I know you're not saying that. But I think by week 3, we're likely to be like, man, DeCorian looks like a monster. And all of a sudden, if we were to re-rank this, I think Oregon has, and no bias here, Oregon has a good chance to be ranked number 1 in this. Like if you look at Dan Lanning, obviously he recruits stars and talent, but Gatlin Bears, like he was a 5-star out of high school 2 years ago. Entering his first year, I don't know what to necessarily expect from him. What I do know what to expect from him if he does play is he has track speed. The dude's just fast. And as long as he's kept in shape while he's been on his mission, I expect him to be able to, like, if Evan Stewart might not be in your like starting, like might not be the starting for you right away, you have a really good wide receiver room. Iverson Hooks, I'm curious to see how he's going to fit in. Is he going to I'm curious how is he going to be the name that we're talking about that this time next year about like what a big impact did he have, or was he going to be more of that was a good depth piece? Like is he going to be a Tez Johnson, or was he going to be a good depth piece? That's a lot to sort out there. But I think my biggest takeaway on Oregon is they're probably fine at 4. I probably would have put them at 3, but they're the team most likely by week 3 to look up and be like, nah, they have the best room in the country.
Yeah, in terms of just quality depth, I think it's hard to put them any lower than 4. And then, yeah, they have the players that have the ceiling to be a top 3 receiver in the country. Evan Stewart is, can you stay healthy? Because whenever he plays, he shows it, but he just hasn't stayed healthy in years. DeCorian Moore got hurt last season, and he was great last year, but it was also against the lackluster competition. And then we didn't really get to see it. We didn't really get to see him against the top competition because he was hurt. Jeremiah McClellan just started to come into his own towards the end of the season. So like I said, it's a deep team with a high ceiling, but I think it's fair to put them back a little bit at this point in time, just until they get a Cam Coleman or a Jeremiah Smith, because those guys are just a different level, and they've been playing at it for a little while. Moving on to number 5, speaking of a guy, yes, go for it.
One hot take: Jeremiah McClellan will lead the team in will lead Oregon in yards and catches next season. I think he's extremely. I think he's just extremely underrated. I think the way people should look at Jeremiah McClellan for Oregon is remind me the wide receiver 2 for Ohio State last year, not Cardinal Tate, the guy before. He's on the Bucs now. He's on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Yeah, he feels more, and they might play slightly different style receivers, whatever positions. He feels like the Emeka Egbuka to Decory Moore is Jeremiah Smith to me. Like, Decory Moore might make the big highlight plays, but Jeremiah McClellan will be that 3rd and 7 guy that just needs that will hold on to it, maybe break free, score a touchdown, or at least get the team moving.
I will gladly take any Emeka Egbuka comps on my team. Moving on to number 5. Speaking of that 1A wide receivers, Malachi Toney in Miami. Sitting here. I love Malachi Toney. I think the whole nation should at this point. I think he really proved himself as a true freshman last season. And he's one of those guys that just gets better the bigger the game, which is just that's a game changing. He played great in the national championship. And then obviously we know they bring in Darian Mensah. They also bring in Darian Mensah's leading receiver and teammate Cooper Barkett from Duke as well. So yes, it's a transfer, but at least you get the connection so it doesn't feel like it's a new player. And then South Carolina transfer Vendrivius Jacobs. I have the note here. Interesting team, interesting room. I really love the top 2, and I love Darian Mensah with them. But after that, I don't really know what this room has to offer. But also knowing Mario Cristobal in Miami, we know the focus is going to be on the ground and in the trenches. How does Darian Mensah fit into that offense? Because he's a guy that likes to air it out and is used to it. And it's a team that doesn't usually use a lot of wide receiver depth. But at the same time, like I was saying earlier, when you want to win a national championship, you do need depth at wide receiver and the ability to have not just 1 or 2 guys be able to beat somebody, but to have 3 or 4. Because once you start playing in those big time playoff games, sometimes you need one more playmaker to be the difference, because your wide receiver 3 is that much better than their 3rd corner. And I don't know if Miami has that edge at the moment, but we shall see. Again, this is months away here.
Not to spoil the rest of the list, because we probably should just go through it quicker now, but I promise this take will have something to do with Miami. Indiana's a 6 with Charlie Becker, Nick Marsh. Texas A&M has Mario Craver, Isaiah Horton, Ashton Bethel Roman, and Terry Bussey. Oklahoma, Isaiah Satania, who we love. Parker Livingston transferred over from Texas. Number 9 is Florida State. Their OC just retired, but they have Deuce Robinson and some guys that we don't know very well. Number 10, Jordan Faison and Jaden Greathouse at Notre Dame. My point in saying some of those guys and some of those teams is I think you're right about Miami, like about how good Malachi Toney is. And this isn't me being a hater. I'm just wondering, why is Notre Dame all the way down at 10? Texas A&M, who had a very good wide receiver room and is returning 50% of that, 50% of their wide receiver stars at 7. Why is Indiana, who Nick Marsh, his only fault is that he was on a bad MSU team last year, but we know how good he is. Charlie Becker, anyone watched that national championship game and doesn't know how good Charlie Becker is, you might be blind. Like, how are these the 6 through 10 teams? And Clemson, I'm sorry, Clemson, you have really good potential first round picks, but it's a lot of it feels like all talk. Like, I don't know. I guess I'm biting on this being a ranking and I'm biting on the bait. But like Texas, yeah, I have arguments for Texas to not be number 1. I have arguments for Texas to be number 1. I have arguments for Ohio State to be lower. I have arguments for Oregon to be higher. But like after that, I get it. It's a wash of everyone's good. It just depends on who has a better season, who's healthier, who has a better, easier schedule, whatnot. I just wonder, like Charlie Becker, Nick Marsh at 6. That feels criminal to me.
I agree. That's a lethal combination. And then Shaz Preston, the transfer from Tulane, he's no slouch. He had a big year at Tulane last year. I can't remember where he came from prior to Tulane, but he was like on a good Power 4 school, wanted a little more playing time, came to Tulane, balled out last season, one of their better receivers, and had some big games in big moments for them. And he's going to be the wide receiver 3. And as I was mentioning with Miami, to your point, in a big game where Miami needs their wide receiver 3 to step up and beat somebody's third corner, I'm not sure Miami has that in the way that Indiana does. The fact that as a team, you have to throw your third corner on one of Shaz Preston, Nick Marshall, Charlie Becker, that's 3 guys that will beat any of your third corners. Texas A&M, I have this note. I think Texas A&M is my number 1 wide receiver room in the country. Mario Craver was insanely good last season. And yes, they lose Casey Concepcion, but they bring in Isaiah Horton, who a lot of people coming into last season thought that the Alabama wide receiver room was going to be the Ryan Williams show featuring Jeremy Bernard. It kind of turned into the Isaiah Horton show featuring Jeremy Bernard. Yeah. Isaiah Horton was just that good. He wasn't supposed to be the guy last season, but he was so dominant, so much more dominant than, mind you, Ryan Williams, who used to be in the Jeremiah Smith conversations. He was that good that he took over an Alabama room, became their best receiver, transferred out to go to Texas A&M to kind of join Mario Craver as having another 1-2 punch like they had last year. But then this year they have that depth. So both Ashton Bethel Roman and Terry Bussey last year were true freshmen, high-end 4-stars, like top 10 wide receivers in the country. And they have like decent stats, but mostly just because they got in some trash time games and put up some big numbers. But also, as 18-year-olds, they were pretty productive against subpar teams. If we live in a world where those 2 guys take that step up, coming into their second season at Texas A&M, second season with Marcel Reed and with Mike Elko, there's a world where they have like a really good wide receiver 3 and wide receiver 4. And as I was saying, depth and having that talent gap, this might be my number 1 team. And then, yeah, Notre Dame, very underrated, high-ceiling team. Florida State, we'll have to see what goes on there. Oklahoma, an interesting one, especially with getting Parker Livingstone to get Texas guy going over to the other side of the rivalry to Oklahoma was kind of funny, especially because the way he exited Texas was a little dramatic.
That was weird.
Did he get wrong? Did he get pushed out? Was he being dramatic? Did go to the rival, though, so I can tell you he is not going to be very welcomed in Austin, Texas the next time that game happens.
No.
I didn't have any honorable mentions. I didn't do the due diligence to make my own top 10 list. I figured if we did that, it would be mostly this. But it's kind of fun to talk names and outputs for the 2026 season. Do you have any lasting remarks, teams that didn't get mentioned that you want to shout out?
No, because I think it's, all due respect to you and our listeners, I think it's way too early in the off season for me to have a list of teams. But yes, I think Jeremiah McClellan, and if Jeremiah McClellan becomes who I think he is, if Evan Stewart is pretty healthy, I think Oregon's wide receiver room is going to be number 1 by the end of the year. Even if they don't have a Cam Coleman, Jeremiah Smith level monster, I think DeCorey Moore is going to be pretty damn close to that, like if not closer. That I'm curious for everyone listening, like, what do you make of the list? If you want to just go look at the list itself on CBS.com, there's a top 10 list of these wide receiver rooms that we just talked about. Let us know your thoughts. Obviously, everyone wants their teams to be in there, but some of it made sense to me. Some of it didn't. You and I, everyone knows how you and I feel about rankings in general. So, I was listening to a radio show on my drive home on Friday, and they were talking about the MLB strike. And during the MLB impending strike that people are assuming, it seems like Rob Manfred, the MLB commissioner's office, and the owners are preparing like a massive fight against the players union for a salary cap. The host of the show said, I was thinking about it, like if I was guaranteed a championship, but we were also guaranteed to lose our season for the next year, would I want that? Or the alternative would be if I wasn't guaranteed a championship, but it was let the cards fall as they may. I'll take the shot. The team's just going to go out, and if they win, they win. If they lose, they lose. But we would have baseball again next year. And he said, I probably would choose the non-guarantee of a championship because I love the sport itself too much. And he doesn't want to go a season or a year without the sport. Now, I wanted to translate that to college football. If you, as a fan of your program, were guaranteed a championship, but the caveat with that guarantee was, Jace, the NCAA, the commissioners, they decide to collectively bargain, or they decided something's broken. We got to start talking about we got to fix this. So we're going to take a year or two off of college football. Like, we can't have college football if the conference commissioners don't work. And all of a sudden, we spend 2 years without college football. Would you take that deal if you were a college football fan? You yourself, then we'll talk. Yeah.
Here's where I'm going to walk you through what I'm thinking initially here. I think it really comes down to which team you're a fan of. As you know, our teams being the Ducks, I think the Ducks have a good enough chance to do it without the guaranteed aspect. And for the combination of my love for the sport of college football, I think I would comfortably say, let's play the games. Hopefully the Ducks pull one out, but I do want these seasons to happen. Because the fall is my favorite season for a lot of reasons, and one of those reasons being college football happens. And I don't know if I could go a year or two without college football, even if that meant the Ducks get one. And there's also a part of me that's saying, does it mean the same when it's forced? Like, I don't know if I would appreciate the championship as much if I knew it was happening because, like, I was able to have this magic spell where they automatically win it. I think I want it to happen naturally, raw emotion, all of that. So I'm gonna say, let's let college football play out. Fingers crossed the Ducks can get us one anyways. But I think it depends on the sport. Like, if you ask me about the NBA, I don't really watch the NBA. So if the Pistons could guarantee a ring and then I didn't have NBA for 2 years, let's do it. But college football, I like the sport too much. It means too much to me to have that thing halted.
No, I've thought about this. I mean, a lot of it just depends on what kind of fan you are. Not like good fan, bad fan, but it's like, I always relate it to my fandoms as, all right, these are the teams I'm a fan of, but these are the teams that, like, I don't cry a lot, but these are the crying championship teams. Like, if the Lakers win a championship, I'm going to be stoked, but I've seen that happen at least like 4 times in my lifetime, right? But if the Angels win a championship, I'd be like, I wouldn't believe that this was possible. Technically, I've seen it happen, but I was like 3, and I wasn't even in this country at that point.
Yeah.
But we're like, if Oregon wins a championship, yeah, it never happened before. We've had so many heartbreaks. That would be a tearjerker championship, So like, I think it depends on what kind of fan you are or what kind of program you're a fan of. I think to play devil's advocate, because I think I'm in lockstep with you about how I would feel about it, but just to play devil's advocate for your Oregon take. Let's say college football doesn't come back. Let's say it just becomes G League football in 4 years, and all of a sudden in 4 years, the model that's there is these athletes are licensed athletes to the university, but they're not actual students. And well, we're going to have the sport, but it's just not going to be anything like what we have right now. Like, it's going to be the University of Oregon, but they're just University of Oregon's licensed athletes, not student athletes. They're not students at the school. They're technically just, if you want to call them, I don't know, they're paid. Regardless, at the last national championship, as you know it, this year or next year, if you're guaranteed that's one caveat of, like, would I want it like in the original fashion to have it? And then that's
a good point.
The other devil's advocate for this take is not to be morbid, but the most important person in Oregon football history is 88 or 87. And not that it's going to hurt Oregon financially. I'm sure there's there's a treasure chest somewhere, a war chest somewhere to keep the program humming for decades to come. But more in the fact that you probably want to win an Natty for him. If you're guaranteed to win it while he's alive, I think some Oregon fans would take that, right?
Yeah, I get it. I believe in the Ducks. I think that's where I believe in Dan Lanning. I believe in the Ducks. I believe in the path they're on. But if it was true that the sport was potentially coming to an end as we know it, and the new next version was going to be so different that you wouldn't be able to appreciate a championship, then I think I would switch and say, yeah, give me the guarantee while we still have it. But yeah, college football is something I was thinking about while you're talking, is unique too, in the sense how people talk about past championships. A lot of people hold really high value for like past championships in college football. But if you talk about even other college sports, like college basketball, I've seen, people say, well, my team won a championship in 2018. And people are like, yeah, dude, that was 7 years ago. Like, who cares? Yeah. It's funny because college football teams who haven't won a championship since 1930s, they hold so much pride in that championship. And like that is their lifeline, is that 1936 championship. So I also think like, I wonder, because that was such a different form of college football than it is now. So do I even if we didn't win it in this form and it was in the next, I think I would be okay with it, because I've seen so many fans just hold on to any championship that they might potentially have claimed, earned, whatever year, that I think I'm okay with them winning, not the natural one, or not in like the sense that we know it.
I should probably say there is no news about college football coming to an end or there being there being a stoppage of play. So I'm not saying that. That's not the reason of this conversation. I was just more so, I thought the topic was interesting. Like, if you think about it, and this isn't to disparage any programs, but I think Oregon would be so great because they've never won one. But to your point, despite never winning one, they are always going to be in lockstep of, they're going to have a chance every year. So great for their fans, great for them. They're always going to be there. So maybe you don't want to guarantee it. But I guess, and okay, we'll use Logan's team, Iowa State. If you guaranteed him a national championship this season, but also guaranteed next year there's no college football while they're trying to figure some things out, would he take it?
I think he should take it in that case. If I was an Iowa State fan, I would take it, because I think the odds of them winning one in the next couple of years is pretty low. But knowing him, like, he's such a good dude that I think in his head he would think, man, like, I can't take this because I want the world to enjoy college football. So I think he would say no, but more so out of his, like, I want to make the right decision for everybody. But I think in his heart, he knows that he would take it. And I'm telling him, I think he should. I think it really comes down to, if you are a fan of a team who realistically has a solid shot of winning one, you might turn it down depending on how much you love the sport. But if you're a fan of a team that really doesn't have a great chance, I think you should take it. And I think most people would.
All right. So where's the line? Like, is it like Delaware should take it?
No, I would say the line is like, if you are a middling Big 12 ACC program would be kind of the line for me. Like, I think anyone in the SEC and the Big 10 should probably say no, because as we've seen with Indiana, if you are in one of those big conferences and you have wealthy donors, you can flip the scripts almost. No, I'm not saying Indiana is going to happen all the time, but it could. Whereas I think if you are like Iowa State, unfortunately, or if you are like Boston College, I don't think those are programs that are particularly going to be powerhouses year in, year out. I think best case scenario, they're a window program. I don't think either program has a window in sight that they're looking at for a championship. And when you're in a dark room like that, I think you just take it if you can get it.
I completely agree with you on that. I think there is something to the point of just the championship itself is special. And I get your point of, like, if I knew that we were guaranteed that, then it wouldn't be as special. But it's a championship, right? And history is written by the victors. Like, people use that year and that win as like so much fun, but also you use it to be like in the lineage of, like you said, in football is like, no, we won the 1964 national championship. We're so important. And that's the last one they won or whatever.
Yeah.
And like the caveat the co-host said on the show I was listening to was, dude, it's a championship. You're turning down a championship because you're scared of something that might not happen next year. And I guess that's a lot more real in baseball. Like, if the Tigers were guaranteed a World Series this year for you, would you take that?
What, you mean they're not already? I'm just kidding.
I mean,
I would. I'm kidding. I would take it for the Tigers, because they, similar to Oregon, have given me a lot of heartbreak. And a lot of people don't. Tigers are like, Oregon football is my 1A. I would say like Tigers baseball is like my 1C. All right, there's 3 teams I have up there. Michigan State Spartans basketball is probably 1B there. But like, Tigers baseball has been my lifelong. Me and my dad watch almost every game of Tigers baseball in my life. Baseball is the sport you and I played in high school and everything. Growing up, that's what we played. Like, Tigers, man, I would take it. Especially because unfortunately, I think the Tigers years, Scooball is going to be in a Yankee or Dodgers jersey a year from today. So I think we got to take it now while we can.
How about that one?
I know that's a whole nother subject, but unfortunately it's going to happen. You could put Scooball. I would be happy to see Scooball in an Angels jersey, because he's not going to be in a Tigers one. And I certainly don't want to see a deferred contract for $7 billion in 2064 with the Dodgers. And I definitely don't want to see him in pinstripes. So,
you know, the best part of this is whenever this show takes off, and it's definitely gonna lead into like a baseball show too. We'll have a second baseball show because as for people out there, Jason and I don't just talk about this about football. There's a reason our fiancés call this our play dates because we're just here talking.